Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Salam Media. This is News and Views with me, Julie Ali. It is it's just gone 10 after 9 o'clock. Perfect timing, Shaheen Isub. Salamu alaikum. Welcome to the show. I see you're comfortably seated. You're comfortably seated in your office. When we spoke a little earlier on, you were on your way to the office. You were still in the car. Nice to be talking with you after a long absence. And Alhamdulillah, for the first time in a long time, we here at Salam Media are going to start on a good news story. So welcome. And you are going to be talking to us about SAHUC's new dynamic registration portal. Assalamu alaikum. Over to you, Shaheen.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. By the way, I don't think you need to scare your viewers or your listeners out there. It's 10 after 8, not 10 after 9.
Oh, my word. Thank you for the correction.
I think the most important thing is that, it's a beautiful early day in Gauteng, alhamdulillah, after all the rain that was experienced down here. We must make shukr to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for giving us the opportunity to be in the service of His guests. And yes, this dynamic portal is something that we do put out on an annual basis. The purpose of which is to ensure that people see more or less where they are placed in the queue for the upcoming Hajj. Now, a lot of people are finding confusion in the sense that people who have applied in 2021, 2022 are saying, we're going onto the list and we're not finding our names there. That's obviously because the year that the Hajj application has actually been allocated to is later than the year 1444, and you won't find yourself on that dynamic portal. The dynamic portal is for those applicants that have basically been in the queue for the year Hajj 1444, and they, inshallah, will work on a date and time priority. So you see yourself in the queue, you see your position in the queue, and you have an indication whether you should start readying yourself for Hajj coming up, or you don't have the funds or don't have the facilities, whatever the situation may be, that you would then defer your application to a future year. The purpose of this list is specifically to sanitize so that we don't have multiple lists coming out at the time of accreditation once we've received the quota from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. People need to be aware of this. This gives you an indication now, with Hajj being in June, July, it gives an indication that I now need to start doing preparations. I now need to make sure my funds are ready. I now need to make sure my logistics is ready. Do I get leave from my company? Do I get time off from from my work for different purposes? Families who want to start a family, do we start a family now? Do we wait? These are all the questions that individuals need to assess and make on their own in that regard. But essentially, all this means is it's giving you an indication or a look through in terms of where you are positioned in the queue and whether you would be eligible should we get a quota of, let's say, 3,000 or 3,500. Our base quota prior to COVID was 2,500. We've always asked for an increase. And alhamdulillah, we got up to 3,500 and up to 4,000 in the past. We're hoping that the same may apply. Now, people who are out there that were over the age of 65 for this Hajj must not be despondent. We do believe that things will change. We don't think that they can keep the age limit up there, but it has not yet been made known to anybody internationally as yet. So we have to be patient. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia will start making their preparations in the next few weeks and inshallah over the next few months, where they would then call the different countries to come and have conversation with them in order to know what the quota is going to be, and also in order to inform countries from abroad what the new rules are going to be in terms of Hajj for 1444. So that is essentially where this dynamic portal comes from, Julie, and what the purpose of it is at this point in time. Now, people must also understand that as applicants in the queue who may be in the queue without a payment reflecting comes and presents a payment receipt, your position in the queue may change, and hence it's called a dynamic registration list. The dynamism of this list is that through queries that are being entertained or queries that are being looked at and obviously resolved, one's position can go up or can go down in the list. If there are people, for example, in COVID who are in the queue that may have passed away and they get removed from the queue, then people will escalate on the queue. And in the same way, if you have somebody below you who may have not paid or who may be a mahram to a female that is above you, your position could move down a few places. So that is essentially what this queue is, or this dynamic list is all about, is to give people the transparency and the look through in terms of what is going on in the registration queue and the process.
Shane, let me ask you this important question. What if I had deferred pre-COVID, just before we were shut down, due to unavailability of funds or whatever the issue might have been? And then COVID hit us. So there are two issues that I'm having to grapple with here. I deferred because of personal reasons, and then COVID hit. So we were all in limbo for 2 years. What's my position now? Am I completely off that list? Do I confer with SAHUC? Do I say to you, my position has changed? I am now ready to go. Where on the list do I get preference at all?
The preference, unfortunately, nobody gets, because I think in order to be fair to everybody, date and time priority of application takes place. Now, if a person deferred in 2019 or 2020, that person will move forward into the year of deferment according to the date and time of that applicant. During COVID, when nobody went for Hajj, there was a complete deferment of the of the application or the accreditation list, and everybody slotted into the queue according to their date and time that they made the application, whether it be in 2010, 2012, 2014, or 2015. Nobody gets preference, because if one looks at a situation where Julie Ali applied in 2012, and Julie Ali, for whatever reasons, couldn't go, so Julie Ali had deferred and puts Julie Ali on the 2012 for the year to 1444. Shaheen Isub comes, and Shaheen Isub says, I was accredited in 2020, and you people took me off the list because of COVID. So I must get preference over Julie Ali. But Julie Ali's application date is 5 years or 3 years earlier than mine. There's no reason why I should go ahead of Julie Ali. And that is the fairness and the transparency and the equitability that the system and the queue actually provides.
Shane, how long is this list? When I speak to young people, in fact, I've told my children, my sons and their wives, please, consider going on Hajj, because even should you apply now, there's no guarantee that you will get a place maybe within the next 5 years. I don't know. Can you give us some sort of idea how long the waiting period is?
Well, let's first take a step back and look at two things. The first thing is, people don't realize once they apply on the system, it gives them an opportunity to save towards an objective goal. Now, if you look at that objective goal that they want to save towards, that goal is basically to ensure that you are going to perform pilgrimage. So if you apply now, and let's say your indication is that the queue is 5 to 8 years or maybe even 10 years, you know that it's going to give you at least 8 years before you probably get accredited. It gives you enough time to do the preparations. It gives you enough time to start saving and putting money away for that particular process that you are going to embark on. Unfortunately, with COVID in 20 and 2021, it certainly has put us back quite considerably. We were looking prior to COVID at between 5 and 6 years.
Sure.
It's now gone up to between 8 and 10 years. That's not a lot, Julie. If one looks at Malaysia, Malaysia's queue is currently over 1.5 million strong. That's about a 73-year waiting list based on their historical quota that they received. So we're not the only country with that uniqueness in terms of where we are. Yes, we do have a very small quota, and that's based on the number of Muslims we have in our country. So it's unfortunate that we don't have a quota of 5 or 7,000, because it certainly would help to reduce the number in the queue. Affordability, as we've seen in the last years, is obviously a main factor in terms of people deferring, or in terms of people not taking up accreditation. But alhamdulillah, there are people out in the community, and Allah must reward them abundantly, that come to the aid of these people to top up their Hajj shortfalls, in order for people to exercise or to enjoy this once in a lifetime journey.
And you are absolutely correct. South Africa is not the only country suffering the issue of quotas. Even people in the Middle East and people in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, their locals are also restricted from performing Hajj on a regular basis. So
Yes.
quotas are in place in that country as well. I'm kind of wondering, do you think that the situation will ever change? Because in the past, way back in the past, we didn't have, we didn't have this. You just decided overnight, I am of the means, alhamdulillah, I make my niyat and I'm on my way. I'm going for Hajj. Obviously, things have changed
Dynamics.
drastically over the years.
Absolutely so. And dynamics has changed worldwide. When you look at the situation from a perspective of where we stand, we always think that South Africans must be treated differently to everybody else in the world. There's been a significant increase in the number of Muslims around the world. I mean, today we sit at an average of about 1.6 billion. And if one looks at the space in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and specifically the space in Mina, Arafah, Muzdalifah, and the surrounds, you look at the number of people that can actually perform Hajj. If we took 1.6 billion and we said, okay, 800 million are probably people of means, and of that 800 million, let's say 400 million are probably people above the mukallaf or the baligh age. If you take 10% of that 400 million, that's 40 million people that are eligible that can go for Hajj at any given time. But the kingdom will never be able to accommodate 40 million people at any one time in Hajj. In fact, the 2030 vision of the government of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia alludes to the fact that they want to see 5 million people for Hajj in the year 2030. Now, that in itself brings logistical nightmares to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for the movement of people in the 5 days of Hajj, specifically around Mina. Mina is currently 1.86 square kilometers, and that has not changed from the time of Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam. There's been an ongoing battle between the ulama and the government to try and expand Mina into the Azizia area, which would be able to then accommodate more people. But Mashair Mina will never be able to, because that is the holy sites and the holy place. You can't extend into Azizia and suddenly call Azizia a holy place. It just doesn't make sense to be, inclusive in that particular process. So they're now talking about probably multi-story buildings, and even your tent structures, they're probably going to go up 2 or 3 times. Where you look at a ground floor, first floor, and a second floor, and that then takes you to about 7.5 million people. You'll never be able to accommodate more than that based on the fact that, the expansion in the Haram, the Mataf area can't go any wider. At the moment, at full capacity, the Mataf first floor, second floor, and the roof can probably give you about 175 to 200,000 people per hour to perform tawaf. Can you imagine the congestion that you're going to have? Now, that congestion, together with grouping issues, is what the Saudis are starting to be concerned about. Because if they bring 5 million people by the year 2030, all these logistics need to be borne into place. All these structures need to be put into place as well. When people leave Muzdalifah to come to Mina to pelt the Jamarat on the day of Yawmun Nahr, they want to now stagger it according to the Madhaib. For example, the Hanafi madhab is probably the biggest number of Hujjaj that come, for Hajj. And based on that, you're probably going to find that they will be the last people to come into Mina to pelt the Jamarat because of the stay over until the Wukuf of Fajr. But there's different processes and structures that one needs to bear into consideration before we just think about, South Africa should have an open quota or should have 20,000. Yes, it's great. We'd love to see a 10 or 20,000 quota for South Africa, but I don't think it will be manageable at this point in time. Space in Mina is always at a premium, and we always get informed by the ministry, even when they give us that 1,000 extra. Please inform your people that because of the scarcity of space in Mina, we may have to house them in Muzdalifah. Now the manasik or the Shari'i ruling about the Sunnah of Mina comes into play as well. And we have to be very cognizant, and there's a fine line to be drawn in that regard.
Shine, can we take an ad break? We'll come back to you just to wrap up if you don't mind, inshallah.
No problem at all.
Boundaries, joining hands. Salam Media. Humanity sets the agenda.
There's no smell that takes me back to the comfort of my childhood than the smell of black seed oil being applied by my nanny. Now I'm using tib black seed in my own home to soothe sniffles and coughs, to help with digestion and immunity, and of course, as part of my beauty routine. After all these years, I've come to appreciate the wisdom in finding comfort and shifa in trusted treatments like Tib Black Seed. You can find Tib Black Seed at all leading pharmacies or find out more at blackseed.co.za.
The only relationship that will never break your heart is your relationship with Allah. Join esteemed scholar Dr. Haifa Yunus this November as she shares her inspirational insights on reconnecting with Allah. Look out for events in Cape Town, Johannesburg, Pretoria, and Durban. All proceeds go towards Islamic relief projects supporting orphans and vulnerable children. Reserve your seat today. Visit islamic-relief.org.za or call 0800 111 898.
When the perfect blend of stylish decor, exquisite halal cuisine, and warm hospitality come together, it could only mean Al Bayt Lodge, your true home away from home. Al Bayt is the ideal heaven for families, business people, and tourists with its 4-star family rooms and other luxurious facilities. Conveniently situated close to Port Elizabeth Airport, the beach, and other amenities, your stay will be truly unforgettable as you'll be taking home lasting memories of the warm hospitality, the serenity and tranquility that Al Bayt has to offer. For reservations, call 041 583 6415 or visit www.albaytlodge.co.za.
Ah, the kitchen, the heart of the home, where memories are made and celebrated. Our go-to place for those freshly stacked pancakes early in the morning or for that late-night snack munchies. We are in there together, cooking, eating, and celebrating life together. Let's keep the kitchen a place that is shared by everyone, where we build stronger bonds and grow together. Sunfoil, Now We Cooking. Visit nowwecooking.co.za for recipes that everyone can help make.
Rejuvenating media day by day. This is Salam Media.
It is exactly 8:26 a.m. Welcome back. This is News and Views on Salam Media. We're talking with Shaheen Isup. Obviously, he is the president of SAHUC. That time of year when we start getting these conversations going. Shaheen, a listener and viewer is asking, have the previous problems been resolved with those agents that obviously the issue around the monies, were the pilgrims ever refunded? Were those issues resolved? And how do pilgrims or prospective Hujjaj protect themselves regarding this issue ever arising again?
You know, Julie, that's a very difficult question to answer. First of all, yes, most of the Hajj operators, that did take funds from the people back in 2020 have resolved that. I think there's still one or two outstanding matters or outstanding companies that have not yet refunded all their pilgrims as at this particular point. COVID's been a very difficult time, not only for travel industry, but for everybody around the world. We're not here to defend anybody. At the end of the day, that's a process that needs to fulfill. Now, when you go forward in terms of making sure that you are protected against this, this is where SAHUC actually comes in. And unfortunately, during the last Hajj, we were accused of wanting 3 million rand from operators who wanted to apply for accreditation, which is not the case. We asked for a bank guarantee from that particular operator in line with the number of pilgrims that they are going to basically take for Hajj or intend to take for Hajj. So let's say Julie Ali is an operator and Julie Ali wants to take 100 people. We work out what the average package is of Julie Ali's and we say, right, we want 50% of that package times 100 people as a bank guarantee. How you raise that bank guarantee with your bank is entirely your process. That's got nothing to do with us. We don't want your money in our bank account. We just want a letter, an irrevocable letter of guarantee, because that's what helps us to protect the pilgrim insofar as that is concerned. What we also insist upon is when the accreditation process takes place and when Hujjaj take, the deposits are made to the operators, these operators must transfer those deposits over to the electronic Hajj system of the ministry, known as the Masar system, as soon as possible. It must not be kept in, the operator's bank account locally, because that operator is now activated in the account there, And that is the guarantee that your money is safe. That is the guarantee that the money is going to be utilized for the Tanazul and for the accommodation in Medina and Makkah and in Azizia and for the transport arrangements as well. So those are the things that have been put into place to try and eliminate and to alleviate. Unfortunately, to get 100% protection is not an easy thing to be done. We yet to find a foolproof system. To me, the bottom line is operators mustn't use other people's money for their businesses. They must have skin in the game. They must pay for the deposits. And once they've done that and they collect money from their pilgrims, whatever profits they generate is good for them.
Alhamdulillah. Okay. SAHUC doesn't get involved at all with the exchanging or passing over the monies.
No.
It doesn't come via SAHUC at all. You don't get a cut of it, not a percentage, nothing at all.
Not at all. I run
Okay.
I run my financial affairs away from SAHUC, and Alhamdulillah, none of my board, none of the members of SAHUC are all are any paid members of SAHUC. We do it voluntarily. The only paid members we have or paid staff we have are the three ladies, one in Durban, one in Cape Town, and one in Johannesburg.
Okay, so finally, when does the official accreditation start for operators and, in fact, the pilgrims as well? So that people can start making the necessary arrangements.
So, as you're aware, in the past, every year we've only accredited pilgrims after we receive notification from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia of our quota. Normally, what happens is they invite us over to the kingdom. We sit down and we go through the previous Hajj. We go through the issues that we may have had and things that we want to raise in the previous Hajj. They basically talk to us about new rules, and then we negotiate the number on the quota over and above the base quota. Once that is in place, only then will we release the accreditation of the Hujjaj. But before that happens, and I think that will start taking place within the next month or so, where we will start the preparatory work for the accreditation of Hajj operators for the ensuing Hajj year, namely 1444. We've still got one or two outstanding matters to deal with the previous Hajj, and inshallah, once that is concluded, then we will start the process going forward again, inshallah.
Now, I know you don't have a crystal ball. I did say it was the final question, but I have to get this in. Shaheen, we know what's happening with the impact of the war on the Ukraine by the Russians. Obviously, it's impacted on oil and gas, etc., meaning that the prices have gone through the roof. We know what's happened to jet fuel prices as well. Does that then suggest perhaps that Hajj is going to be relatively more expensive this year than in past years?
Well, we've seen it in the year 1443, the year that just passed us. We've seen Hajj being quite considerably expensive. I mean, I was flabbergasted when I got the pricing from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for the 5 days of Hajj. In 2019, 2020, we were quoted about 2,250 riyals up to maybe 2,500 riyals for the 5 days of Hajj. This year it was 6,560 or 6,650 riyals. Now, when one looks at what you paid and what services were received, it's rather disheartening. And we've raised this with the kingdom prior to departure, and we will continuously raise it. We've also raised it with the embassy locally, and we will continue raising it with the kingdom going forward. Things are expensive in the kingdom. There's no question about that. In the past, a can of soda would cost you 1 riyal. It's now costing you 3 riyals 50. A meal, an average meal would in the past would cost you between 5 and 10 riyal. It's now costing you between 15 and 30 riyals for a meal. So if you're looking at all of those situations, it does become quite considerable in terms of the pocket. And people need to understand that the economic impacts is worldwide. Yes, Saudi Arabia is going through a fantastic economic boom at the moment, and as a result of that economic boom, we're hoping that they can use some of that buffer in order to bring prices a little bit lower. But your input costs are your biggest concern. I mean, food, for example, when we had discussions with the caterers for the 5 days of Hajj, one of the key ingredients is obviously oil. And when they tell you the cost of what they're paying for oil, we thought we were paying a lot of money in South Africa. It's phenomenal in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Electricity has gone up. Fuel, back in 2017, 2018. Fuel per liter was about 73, 74 halalas. It's now over 2 riyals 35 or 2 riyals 36 for a liter of fuel. So all of those things have a ripple effect and a knock-on effect. Hujjaj must brace themselves and save accordingly and become savvy in terms of how they do things. Normally you'll have bed and breakfast or you'll have half board. If you're doing that, lunch becomes a very simple exercise: a roll with some cheese and maybe some cold meat from South Africa, in order to just sustain yourself for a short period of time. Instead of drinking, colas, you drink Zamzam. That's free in the haram. And water is obviously a much better source of beneficial energy than the sodas are. Ask me, because it just adds to my unnecessary overweight situation.
Um, and obviously, the kingdom as well, Saudi Arabia, has, as the rest of the world, has also taken a knock during the 2 years of lockdown.
Yes.
Shane, thank you so very much for the insight on the issue regarding Hajj and Umrah 2022. Very, very valuable information. And now people can understand it's not about, SAHUC charging extra or the agents or whatever. We need to understand the total picture. And yes, I have heard that not only in Saudi Arabia, but all over in the Middle East, food is extremely expensive. And I guess that boils down to the fact that the majority of those countries don't grow their own food. Most of the
Yes.
food is in fact imported, and that's the reason why the food is so terribly expensive. Anything else you want to share with us before we say salam to you?
No, Jazakallah khairan for the opportunity once again, and we look forward to more interaction as we get closer to accreditation and as we get closer to Hajj, so that we can share and impart whatever information we have with the public out there. I'd like to thank Salam Media for this opportunity on behalf of the South African Hajj and Umrah Council. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Walaikum salam. That was President of SAHUC, Shane Issub, talking to us about the dynamic portal. The one thing that I have omitted to ask him was the issue around COVID, COVID certificates, COVID injections. Is that still going to be a requirement or not? But undoubtedly, we will talk with him in the future and unpack that important issue as well. 8:36 on News and Views right here on Salam Media. Please do stay with me for the rest of the show, and I do hope you do become a part of the conversation.